Hey, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being with us today. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here just because we are about to learn so many things from our experts. But before that, let me just officially welcome everyone to this webcast. And I know that you can be anywhere, but you chose to be with us today. And for that, we are so grateful. My name is Anna, by the way, and I will be your facilitator for this afternoon. Now, before we jump into this afternoon sessions, again, let me just officially welcome you all to everyone tuned in around the globe. Thank you for being with us. This is J-Curve Solutions Agile and Transform Factories for the Future on-demand webcast. This is a great opportunity to learn from industry leaders and discover how your manufacturing business can actually adapt in the new economic landscape. Now, while you're tuned into this webcast, we would like to ask you to go ahead and share what is happening wherever you are on your Facebook or LinkedIn accounts. And just make sure that you use our 3 hashtags. We have 3 for you. That's hashtag Agile and Transformed Factories. Also hashtag Future Proof Factories. And the last one is hashtag J-Curve Solutions. So make sure you use all 3 hashtags. Now, today we will take a look at 5 key topics that revolve around the role of technology in positioning manufacturers for success, which is very important. However, before we officially start our program, please do allow me to give you a brief background about J-Curve Solutions and also Verenya. Now, let's start with J-Curve Solutions. Well, they are a leading-edge, award-winning cloud technology solutions company that provides enterprise resource planning business management software, also enterprise resource planning integration, service management, and marketing solutions for businesses. They have helped organizations of all sizes across Australia and in New Zealand and Asia Pacific to achieve greater success through technology. Now, Verenya, on the other hand, is one of the fastest growing enterprise software companies in the world. It has over 250,000 users worldwide and has helped process billions of dollars of customer quotes and orders with software that streamlines the coding and ordering orders with into fast, flexible, and focused solutions. 3 important Fs. So Verenya's flagship CPQ product is the top-ranked CPQ product on Capterra, and Verenya CPQ for NetSuite is the only CPQ software that is native to NetSuite. Wow, that's a lot. So we are so happy to have them with us today. Now, before we get to our experts this afternoon, I would like to have the honor of introducing them to you so that you can get to know them a little bit better. So joining me are 2 of our industry experts who have in-depth knowledge in utilizing cloud-based ERP in the manufacturing sector. They are excited to share with you some hacks and tips on future-proofing your business. Now, our first speaker has extensive experience in enterprise cloud solutions and also consulting across multiple domains in Singapore, Australia, UAE, India, and the Philippines. He is also an ex-entrepreneur and holds an MBA for AGSM, where he's a Young Leadership Excellence Scholar as well. Not to mention, he also became an MITx candidate in the MITx Micro Masters program in Supply Chain Management. He is J-Curve Solutions Senior Technology and Consulting Leader. Please help me welcome Shrey Patel. Hi, Shrey.
Hi, Anna. Really thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to see you, Shrey, and thank you so much for joining us today. Now, allow me to introduce our second speaker. He has a background in manufacturing sales, customer service, supply chain, and special projects. He has been a user of a lot of different ERP and CPQ solutions over the years, and now has the privilege of working with and for the best available on the market today. Him and his wife and their 3 cats are currently living in Atlanta, Georgia, because they just got tired of the long winters in Chicago and Detroit. And he is the sales manager of Verenya. Please help me welcome Matt Lowen. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Anna. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's good to have you here today, Matt. Now, we will be hearing from both of these industry experts in just a little bit. Now, because we have already completed our industry experts rosters, ladies and gentlemen, I want to get into talking about the key elements that can transform and future-proof a manufacturing business. And I know that's why you're all here. So we are going to turn the floor over to Shrey. Shrey, go ahead.
Thanks, Anna, for the introduction. So over the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to walk together on this journey of how manufacturing really happens in any cloud-based ERP system, and in this case, more specifically, NetSuite. For this demonstration, I've taken the liberty to set up a serialized assembly, which in layman's terms is essentially a finished good with a serial number attached to it. So in this particular example, I've taken a bicycle, and we all know a bicycle is made up of several parts. Now, in NetSuite, we basically are able to maintain different things against each finished good. These two things are one, the bill of materials, and again, you can maintain different revisions of bill of materials. And as you'll see a little later on, you're also able to maintain, what items make up this particular bill of materials. And then Verinia can then generate dynamic bill of materials for you to make sure that your manufacturing is accurate. The second thing that we maintain against a finished good is essentially something called manufacturing routing or operations or steps. So these are essentially a collection of all the steps that are required to finally complete the production process. So let's take a deep dive into the bill of materials itself for this bicycle. So in this particular bills of materials, you can see there's one frame that's required. There's one hardware pack. There's one handlebar, and a couple of wheels are required. Now, what's really interesting about this is obviously these are all the items that are required to produce one bicycle. But on the right side of the screen, what you're able to see is the item source. So this essentially tells us where this item is going to be coming from. Now, the first three items are coming from stock, and that's fine. However, the wheel has its item source as a work order. Now, what does this tell us? This essentially tells us that this is a sub-assembly that is used to make the final assembly, which is the bicycle, right? So where I'm getting to is NetSuite has a lot of flexibility to manage 2 or even 3 levels of sub-assemblies, and you've got the ability to have bills of materials and nested bills of materials, right? So again, drilling down into the bills of materials or bill of materials for the tire assembly, you can see that I need 1 rim, 28 spokes, and 1 tire assembly, right? So in this way, we can accurately understand from a system standpoint what is required to manufacture the eventual finished good, right? And the value of having a setup like this is essentially where you're trying to plan your production and you're trying to do demand planning. So when you actually run demand planning in NetSuite, the system dynamically takes into account all the components that are required right down to the subassembly level that are required to finally finish making that finished good, right? So moving on to the manufacturing routing or the list of all the operations that are required to basically manage production of any finished good. Now, as I mentioned earlier, manufacturing routing is nothing but a list of all the operations that are required to basically manufacture that item. So for this demonstration, I've got welding, I've got chain assembly, I've got wheel assembly, final assembly, and a quality inspection. Now, these are my steps. And as you can see, I've got the operation sequence managed and maintained there as well. Now I've got setup time, I've got runtime against each of these operations. This is crucial in manufacturing because you want to understand the efficiency and how much time each machine or each resource, labor, it could be a factory employee whose productivity you want to manage. So you can set up, how much time is required to run this particular process to manufacture one bicycle. And from a costing standpoint, you'll see that for each of these manufacturing work centers, as you can see, welding station A, assembly cell A, and even an assembly cell A, for each of these work centers, we have the ability to maintain per hour runtime costs, and it's finally all consumed when the costing of the finished good is actually calculated automatically by the system. Now, before we move on, and I'll explain a little bit more about the manufacturing work centers, what I wanted to sort of also show you is how we can specify where certain components of this assembly are used. Now, for example, you can see that the frame can be used in the welding operation, and the hardware pack can be used in, for example, the final assembly, and the handlebar could be used in the final assembly as well. So this gives you a lot of granular control on where to consume these items when it comes to the actual operations, to give you that extra visibility and that extra flexibility to specify where exactly you should be using this component. It's definitely not something I've seen very often in a lot of cloud-based ERPs out there, right? So again, very quickly, you're able to maintain work calendars against each of these resource groups. So resource groups could be groups of employees, or they could be groups of machines, right? And the setup is very similar. But I think what's important is we are able to specify the work calendars for this, which then later gives you more visibility into how you can schedule your production process and you can plan your production process and make sure that you're not having any lost sales and all your demand is being met, right? So in this particular example, you can see for this particular work center, I have said that the work days are Monday to Friday. There's no working on Sundays and Saturdays. The start time is at 9 a.m. and the number of hours worked per day are basically 8 hours per day. So essentially in this way, you can basically do capacity scheduling. And from a production planner standpoint, I think this is gold, right? Essentially. Now, let me just sort of drill down into the actual work order for this particular product, right? As you can see, this is a work order where 4 quantities of bicycles were essentially created, and the system dynamically calculates how much of each raw material is going to be used. Now, again, all component or related transactions are basically captured in that work order. And again, from a usability standpoint, you don't have to go looking at multiple transactions to basically understand where this completion or where this issue is related to, right? So last but not least, I think what's really important is how the production costing actually happens. So in this particular case, I've just opened up a production costing sheet, and you can see based on all the usage of components. For example, as you can see, these refer to raw materials, these refer to labor hours, and these refers to machine runtime. And as I specified a little earlier, you have the ability to maintain individual times or individual costs per hour against each of these cost categories, right? So all of these basically get dynamically calculated as you enter the consumption into NetSuite. And finally, you've got a unit cost of your bicycle, and that's $575, right? So in this way, the system dynamically calculates how much a bicycle ought to cost. And when you sell it, you're always sure that you're getting an accurate gross profit.
Thanks, Anna.
Okay, thank you so much, Ray. Wow, that was an info-packed discussion on how cloud-based ERP can be maximized in the manufacturing industry. Now, we are about to learn about CPQ from Verenia's sales manager, Matt Lowen. He will show us how Verenia's totally NetSuite native CPQ solution can automatically apply complex business logic in order to streamline and error-proof the quote and sales order creation process through all types of channel. We're very excited to hear what you have to say, Matt. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Anna. Hey, good afternoon, folks. Thank you very much for the time today. My name is Matt Lowen. I'm the sales manager here at Verenia. Today, we're going to be learning about our completely native CPQ for NetSuite, as presented by our friends and partners at J-Curve. As stated, my name is Matt. I'm the sales manager here. My own background is in manufacturing, supply chain, customer service, project management. I've worked at a lot of manufacturing facilities and have used a lot of ERP and CPQ solutions over the years. Now I have the privilege and honor of working with and for the best. Very briefly, Verenia was born out of manufacturing at a manufacturing facility in Chicago, where the company is still headquartered today. The company there tasked our CEO, who was an employee at the time, with developing a CPQ. And what he built was unique enough and powerful enough and had enough of that multi-channel, heavy industry sort of capabilities that he was able to spin it off into his own company. That's where Verenia was born. pretty quickly after the launch of that standalone CPQ. NetSuite themselves approached us, and with the launch of that NetSuite native product, that relationship has been going off like gangbusters ever since. We currently are experiencing our, I think it's 6th consecutive year of triple-digit growth. We do have over 250,000 users across 20 countries, and we proudly remain the premier and only native CPQ solution for NetSuite. What does it mean to be a native solution? That means that we do exist utterly and totally inside of the CPQ itself. We are very proud of that native Suite app badge that you see in the middle there. And what that means is that our software exists utterly and totally inside of NetSuite. So all of your data is safe and secure on those same Oracle servers. You get to take advantage of that same global infrastructure, and there's no real integration. There's no middleware, there's no connectors. So Verenia is really, we're not really an integration to NetSuite, we are an extension of it. Some of the problems that we're going to be talking about that we solve for our clients are products are too complex. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of business logic behind those options. We have a large dealer network. There's bottlenecks for either training or for approvals, customer-specific pricing, order accuracy, creating bombs and routings ends up being a huge time sink. These are all things that we're going to help you with, and we're going to help your customers with. We're going to be talking about primarily our product configurator today, which is where we take that complex business logic and streamline and automate that quote and order creation process. Additionally, we're going to be able to produce dynamic bills of materials and routings as the selections and the configuration are being made. And we do have several different options for imaging, whether that's 2D composite images, where images are layered on top of each other to build a visual representation of that product, or even some new 3D image rendering capability, as well as CAD integration. We also have our guided selling module. This was designed more so for folks that do have a large number of SKUs, a lot of off-the-shelf items. In manufacturing in particular, we find folks with a service department, anybody that sells a lot of parts and pieces can definitely benefit from this. Essentially what this is an Amazon-like user interface that sits right on top of your NetSuite item master. So your users can quickly and easily drill down to the correct items that they're looking for. Okay, with that being said, we can now get into the good stuff. So I will jump into NetSuite. Here I am on a sales order. Out of the box functionality, we do launch from one of these sales transactions, opportunity, quote, sales order, but really with a little bit of professional services, we're going to be able to launch from anywhere inside of the ERP. Once that customer information is established, I'll scroll down. Here's the various buttons for our various modules. I'm going to open up my configurator. Now, this is just a demo library of a bunch of different products, but I did want to show something that does have some heavy manufacturing functionality. So we're going to take a look at this construction tubing product. Should mention that there's any number of ways that a user can approach configuration, whether it is in the more traditional sense of selecting options. But what we have found is that a lot of times our clients, when they are speaking to their own clients, don't necessarily know which make and model and list of options that they need. So you can actually have your entire configurator be this more sort of survey, where in the case of this tubing product, what's going to be flowing through it, what temperature is it operating at, what's the pressure range, is there a preferred material, et cetera, et cetera. So in this plain, straightforward language, you're going to be able to have that discussion with your client to drill down to what they're actually needing. We'll go ahead and open the configurator here. Obviously, lots of different ways to interact with the information, whether it's image selection or checkboxes, radio buttons, drop-down fields, free text entry, calling out to tables. The user experience, the user interface is going to be highly customizable. As I select this template, you can see this T-shaped template. Some defaults are going to be selected for us. In this case, a 4-inch diameter tube. I'll choose a T1 connector. Here's where you can see some of those other compatibility rules are firing, including having any information in these hoverovers, whether it's compatibility information or maybe just suggested factoids. Calling out to a table is a great way of getting at some metadata or extra information. Maybe if you have 1,000 different answers to a possible question, you don't want to be scrolling for 1.5 miles. So coming to a table is a great way of getting at that info. Once I've chosen my PVC, this is where the really cool stuff starts happening. As I start entering in values here for these lengths, you can see down here, it's telling me how many of these different 50-foot, 25, and 10-foot tubes are going to need. Of course, just like NetSuite, Verinia can operate with any unit of measure or currency, etc. But based on the values that I've entered here, the system is smart enough to know that, okay, I'm going to need 9 50-footers, I'm going to need 2 10-footers, as well as because of these 11 tubes that I have, it knows I'm going to need 9 of these connector sleeves. I can even take a look under the hood here a little bit and see where I have my different materials. Here's my connector type. Here's my different tubing lengths. There's that connector sleeves. If I need some reinforcement rings and I want them spaced every 15 feet, again, system knows that logic. It knows I'm going to need 13 of them. Where if I now take a look at my bill of materials, here you can see those 13 reinforcement rings added right to the BOM. And that's what we mean by dynamic bill of materials. As the selections are being made in the configuration, that bill of materials is being built in real time. Something that may not be a violation or a compatibility issue, but simply a validation, in this case for this adhesive. It's letting us know and giving us a warning here that while this may be technically feasible, may not be best practice. Once I do make the appropriate choice, you see that messaging goes away. We are utilizing a smart part number system here. You don't have to do this. Most of our manufacturers will find value in this. In this case, it's a 4-inch tube with a T1 diameter made of PVC, etc., etc., etc. The format of this can be anything that you wish. Of course, we have this window sticker, sort of product summary that we're putting together here. Much in the same way that we are dynamically building out the bill of materials, we can do the same thing for the routing steps. So the different workstations that this product has to go through, depending on the selections that are made in the configuration. For instance, special processing. Am I creating any labels? Am I printing anything on this? Am I doing any sort of engraving? These choices here would enforce or inform that list of routing steps. When I open this collapsible shipping category, what we're talking about here is really how do we want this information to appear back on that transaction? Do we want a single line item for configured tubing where all of the hardware and everything is part of the bill of materials kind of behind the scenes? Do we want to ship separate? Maybe we have our configured tubing as one line item and our hardware as a separate line item. Or we could indeed just ship when we say ship everything separate, it just means everything will appear on the line item. All of the components, all of the hardware, etc. Including other things, like a weight calculator is fairly easy to write in here. So it's a roll up of what the weight is. If we need to group items together, we can certainly do that as well. Suggested items, required items as well. So a lot of cross-sell, upsell opportunity. In this case, accessories. Let's get a couple of support brackets, a couple of hanging straps. If we did want to treat this as a sort of catalog, we could certainly do that as well. Or if you had a catalog that we needed to connect to, we could dig into that to find some of these parts and pieces. And something that's, pardon me, something that is, would have benefited me intensely when I was working in various manufacturers, is this ability to not only see what is on hand. We know what all of the material components are or requirements are. So we know how much of this configuration is going to require. We know how much we have on hand because, again, we're inside a NetSuite. This is a demo environment, so don't pay attention to the numbers here. How many is available to promise? If anything is out of stock, does a PO exist for it? Does that PO, is that supplier, are they a day away or are they 12 weeks away? What's the status of this item that's out of stock? Do we have any suggested alternatives? Are we utilizing scrap or runoff? If I'm cutting these various tube lengths, is that just scrap that we're throwing away, or is that stuff that we're keeping and we're bringing back into inventory to reuse where applicable? These are all important questions and things that Verinia can help you with in your manufacturing process. And of course, we do have full pricing control as well. In this case, where you can add a discount percentage if you want to negotiate down to a specific dollar amount. Maybe you want to tweak the margin a little bit, or some combination of everything there of of everything here, you can certainly do that as well. You can also have a series of approvals. So in this case, we've written in, so if I'm a sales rep and I'm allowed to discount 10% in this case, and it's going to show me what that percentage is. So that's fine. Let's say I'm allowed to do that, but I have some rules set up that if I exceed a certain threshold, some things are going to happen. So if I try to give a 70% discount, red flag's going to show up. It's going to tell me, hey, I can't do this. I have to get approval. So since I only have this sales rep credential, I can't approve or reject this. I have to request authorization. At which point, I can have as much or as little information here as need be. Is this getting sent to my manager as a notification? Are they going to log in and it'll be the first thing on their dashboard next time they log in? Do we need to send it as an email? Do we need to, I don't know if they're walking around like a doctor with a pager on, do we need to page them? These are all things that you're going to be able to do as well. So I'll get rid of that discount so everything looks kosher here. Let's say everything looks good. I will go ahead and submit this. And this is going to drop that configuration as well as those two breakout items, that hanging strap and those support brackets, back onto my sales order. And again, this is just a generic number, P12345. We could just as easily have used that smart string part number system. Really, as a native application, we're going to be able to push and pull data to and from any record, any field, anywhere inside of NetSuite. Once this is good to go, we can then send this on to a work order, which is what your folks on the shop floor are actually going to be working off of. So as an example, here is the work order as generated from our configured product. Here's our various materials, our different connector types and adhesives. Here's the routing steps that this needs to go through. So again, just wanted to paint that full picture of the manufacturing capabilities that NetSuite has. If we want to, I don't think we're going to get into guided selling today just based on the time constraints, but I know that proposals are something that is probably important to you folks. So you can take this configured tubing, this configured product, this order, and we can open up our proposal generator, which can give you something like this. This is just a sample. You can have as many different proposal templates as you please, where you can include things, some fancy graphics, customer information, company philosophy. Here's your customer information, whatever sort of product info that you want to have appear on the proposal itself, absolutely, including imaging, configured info. Here's our breakout items, payment schedule, terms and conditions, et cetera, et cetera. So really quick example of some of the things that we're going to be able to do for you folks. Looking forward to the panel discussion and answering some questions. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, both of you, for explaining how Verenya CPQ works, Matt, and then Shrey for clarifying so many things for us as well. We are continuously seeing just how adaptable and capable NetSuite is in streamlining the core functions of businesses across different industries. And I think that's a lot of goldmine over there. Now, we do have a bit of time to answer a couple of questions, well, more than a couple, so brace yourselves, Shrey and Matt. So I want to jump into it right now. The first question is, in light of the global challenges in supply chain, what are the 2 or 3 impacts we see in the manufacturing industry? Maybe Shrey can answer this one.
Right. Thanks, Anna. So I think obviously the world is a very different place than what it was before the pandemic. And there are sort of, in my opinion, there are sort of 3 key trends that actually stand out across this pandemic, right? The first is something that we spoke about a little earlier. It's just the fact that supply chain itself is becoming extremely fragile. So as opposed to before the pandemic, when you could rely on 1 or 2 suppliers in a particular country, today you're forced to diversify your supply chain. So that's something that manufacturing companies really have to think about, and that's really exponentially increasing work order lead times and supply lead times as well. The second thing is a direct result of the pandemic, right? So a lot of companies are becoming, they're becoming smart. So essentially what they're doing is, because of liquidity problems, they're moving to a sort of JIT or a just-in-time sort of model, right? And what that essentially means is you don't have as much inventory in your warehouse and you try to do a lot more make to order, and that's really important for a lot of companies. So having that flexibility in terms of solutions as well to support that flexibility becomes extremely important. And just leading on from that, last but not least, you've got a lot more bespoke production as opposed to mass production, right? You're looking at consumers wanting exactly what they want, and that could mean, in the context of a chair, you want different fabrics, you want different materials, you want different finishes, right? And really, Verenia's solution, I might add, helps really, usher in that new process of make to order and really coming up with bespoke offerings for your customers.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Shrey, for answering that question. Now, I have a question here. They're actually asking for a concrete example on how the work center and resource management work together in boosting the resilience of manufacturing businesses. Mm-hmm. Can either Matt or Shrey maybe shed some light into that?
Sure.
Shrey, this is probably your area of expertise.
Thanks, Matt. So look, I think the key trend that's happened in terms of resources during this pandemic is just the fact that you cannot rely on workers being available all the time. Now, that becomes extremely important because from a manufacturing or within a manufacturing context, you're relying on resources, right? To basically make sure that you're able to fulfill demand and you're able to manufacture the items and then you're able to ship it off to your customers. Now, if you do not have visibility into your resource management, if you don't have the ability to really look at all your resources and in a resource chart or a Gantt chart, now you're really losing out because there's a lot of your competitors have that capability to forecast a lot better, right? So their work order lead times are now going to be so much more accurate. Now, the last thing you want during a pandemic or during any sort of business environment is for you to say you'll deliver on a certain date and not being able to deliver on that date, right? So having that system in place through an ERP becomes doubly important in this context, Anna.
Thank you so much for that, Shrey. So it seems like it's such an easy choice to make, but there are some people out there who are still on the fence. So what advice can you give those who are not decided yet if they should use cloud-based ERP in their manufacturing business?
I'll take a stab at this one. So in lieu of advice, I'll share a story. There was in the past life, a former employer of mine was in that situation. They were trying to decide, did they knew they wanted to go onto the cloud, but it was a big undertaking and we were busy and they wanted to push that, down the road a little ways. And then over a weekend, the building zoning code or whatever, the city was forcing them to update their fire suppression system, and it went off in the server room and just ruined everything. So they were completely lined down. They were knocked back to the Stone Age. So they were down for a couple of weeks, and thankfully they used that opportunity to adopt a modern business system that was cloud-based. So something like that can never happen again. And that's just, one of, thousands of benefits.
Yeah, that would push them to getting it, right? That's a good example, Matt. Well, I have you, Matt. I do have a question here for you. Would you say there is any limit to the complexity of logic that you can handle? This is for example, are customers limited to a number of possible options or sub-options, you think?
No, if there is any sort of complexity, we haven't run into it yet. And our clients are doing everything from simple, applying printing labels on pens and mugs, with one or two choices, all the way up to heavy industrial machinery with thousands or tens of thousands of possible options, which of course is, in the millions or even billions of iterations of possible combinations of options and components and subcomponents. So no, we haven't run into any complexity that we haven't been able to handle yet. In fact, just the other day, I learned a new mathematical term that I had never heard before. We were factoring polynomials on a torque curve for somebody within the CPQ. So yeah, we haven't, no, is the short answer.
So no limit. I'm not even going to attempt to say what that was you learn, but good to know,
I'm amazed
Matt.
I got it out.
what about the, how does the implementation look like for your CPQ, Matt, particularly to you?
Yeah, so we always make sure to let our clients know that what we have is not a plug and play solution. It is a tool set. And that's part of the beauty and power of it, is that we shape the software to the client's business. More so than to your question, we teach our customers how to shape the software to their business. They're not going to have to change their systems to adapt to the software that we provide for them. So implementation, we have two approaches. One is kind of a white glove sort of service where we would build out the entire platform following the lead of the client. Couple of reasons. Well, that's all fine and well. The more popular approach by an order of magnitude is our hybrid approach, which is where we're going to teach you how to fish. We train you how to do all of the admin side of the software, the setup and the maintenance. And then let our customers' teams, continue on and with their own self-implementation. And the reason that we do that, and that it's more popular, is twofold. One, it's just more economical. They're not going to be paying our own services rate. We're not a services shop. We provide the software and the training. Two, it's just general better practice to have folks on staff that know how to make those changes to a vital system like a CPQ. So if there's any rolling changes from a supplier, if you're going to change your own options, your pricing rules, whatever the case may be, we figure it's your software. You should be able to do with it what you please. We don't believe in holding our customers hostage. There's always somebody available to answer the phone as needed, but we want our clients to be self-reliant.
Wow, wonderful benefits. Thank you for sharing that with us, Matt. I have just time for two more questions, so I'm going to go ahead with this first one. Dynamic bill of materials and dynamic routes or operations, how important do you think these are in the modern world and the impact it has on accurate production costing? And I suppose Matt should answer this question if I'm
Yeah, no problem. So that's everything. With the ability to dynamically generate that bill of materials and routing steps, we're talking about system of truth, right? You know that what the folks on the shop floor are going to be working off of is the most accurate and up-to-date information, and they're not going to be going off of some old record, maybe a couple revisions past or something of the sort. And as far as the accurate production costing, the key for that, I'm going to focus on the word is accurate, and that it's in order accuracy, quote accuracy, making sure all of those options are compatible. So with that, you're eliminating rework. How much does the budget of a field service department? What if you took your error rate from whatever 5% down to less than 1%? The phrase that I use in sales cycles is, sorry, I gotta sneeze. Edit point. Okay, I'll say this away. Is that just on the recouped losses that our clients experience after adopting something like a CPQ, the system pays for itself inside of a month. Most folks don't even realize the cost of keeping the lights on.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Matt. Before we have the last question, I wanted to ask Shrey this question, actually. Shrey, how can NetSuite and Verenya help your business differentiate itself amongst the crowd and actually prepare for an increasingly uncertain future?
Right. So look, I think what's important here in this question is uncertain, right? So when you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty, what you want is a lot of flexibility, right? Because things are so dynamic, things change all the time. So having a solution like NetSuite and probably even more important, having a solution like Verenya that's native to NetSuite, being built on NetSuite, within NetSuite, I think it gives you a lot of flexibility, because today, if you're doing something in a particular way, that's a function of the macro environment that's out there, right? And the business environment could totally change next year. How do you have systems that allow you to pivot, right? As quickly as business environments change? I think that's key. So if you look at I think, Anna, to sum it up, if you look at the value chain of any manufacturing business, right, when we start from the sales side of things, I think Verenia, exponentially reduces the number of days that it takes to get a successful quote signed by a customer, right? And I'm not talking about a couple of days. I'm potentially talking about something that could have potentially taken 30 days even, being reduced drastically to 5 days or 4 days, right? Without you having to deal with multiple Excel sheets, right? And then having that translated into the NetSuite production system. Again, having that dynamic bill of materials and dynamic routes gives you accurate production costing, and then you're able to then fulfill that demand through orders taken in NetSuite. So it's really a turnkey solution that this provides, and I think it's extremely flexible, it's extremely scalable, and even if the business changes 5 times in the next 5 years, this solution stays with you. I think that's important to understand.
Oh, that's wonderful, Shrey. Flexibility and adaptability. Those are the keys, right? And we have so many other questions, so many good ones, but unfortunately, those are the only questions we have time for today. But we just want to assure you that this is not the last webcast episode that we're going to have. So just tune in and make sure you're updated with us so you know when the next one will be. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank our speakers for today, Matt and Shrey. We are so grateful for your time, for being with us and expounding on the role of cloud-based ERP in the transformation of manufacturing businesses into agile and future-proof factories. That means so much to us, and there's still so much more we can learn about NetSuite's capabilities. So again, we'd like to invite you to just keep an eye out, everyone, for more webcasts in the coming months. But before we do end this session, please don't forget to like our official Facebook and LinkedIn pages. All you have to do is search for J-Curve Solutions, and also stay tuned on our pages and for updates and anything that we have to offer for you. We have events coming up very, very soon. For your questions or maybe for your inquiries, please feel free to drop us a message anytime, and we will be more than happy to assist you. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. It is truly an honor to be with you today, and we will see you in the next one. My name is Anna. Please stay safe out there. Goodbye. See you soon.